All right, hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bitcoin Brief with your host, Vays, and I am joined once again by the usual crew with Jimmy Song and Lex, the Bitcoin mechanic, also goes by Grass-Fed Bitcoin on Twitter. How are you today, guys?
Good, bro. How are you? You partying too
Good,
hard last
good.
night?
A little bit, yeah. So I was at an event called, that's why I didn't even tweet yesterday, I didn't do a video yesterday. I was at an event called Family Office and Sports Experience, and it's great. It's an event that helps athletes manage their money so that they don't blow it, as you saw with all the stories. So it was an awesome event. Got to meet a bunch of old players I used to watch. Former FSU players, EJ Manuel, Charlie Ward, Heisman winner, played for the Knicks, Charles Smith. Like it was really good. Brandon Marshall was there. Lonzo Ball was there. It was really, really, really good event. Jimmy, how are you down in Austin? They're
Things are
locking you
good,
down yet again?
Yeah, that really kind of sucks. The Delta variants means that they're requiring masks, at least in the city of Austin. I don't think the rest of Texas is like that, and I'm going to be out of Austin for the next week. So hopefully when I get back, it'll be normal again, or the state legislature will have done something or whatever, because it's kind of getting ridiculous. Went to BitDevs last night. Everybody was there. And nobody wore masks, and we had barbecue and everything, and it was fine. But it's the city of Austin. This mayor, I just do not like this guy. He's just not getting rid of the homeless tents like the referendum said he had to, and he's like doing all this stuff.
I know he's a Democrat. They love the homeless. Yeah. They love them. They just want more.
It's not
homeless.
even that. It's they want to parade them around and make it like normal or something. It's just it's
a social.
I'm not happy with it.
It's a social justice thing. Look at all the homeless. You all have to pay more taxes so I can get rid of the homeless. Then they bring more homeless. Hey, you have to pay more taxes so I can get rid of the homeless.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I like they're trying to turn like Austin into like an undesirable city.
San Francisco. But
there's a lot of people moving here, so I don't know. Maybe that's I have no idea. It's a strange world right now.
Let's get the show on the road. We got a bunch of stories. We have I'm not sure how many are watching, but too many, not enough screens. Let's talk some crypto. We haven't done the show in a while. Lots of things happen. And let me start this off on the right note. Since the show is just getting started and we're somewhat early, let's talk about the decentralized, centralized projects that continue to get hacked because people just can't learn. The Haven protocol will, of course, roll back the chain to block number this. How the hell did it have this many blocks? Is it like every 15 seconds? I've never even heard of this shitcoin. And obviously, it has already been hacked. And this is why we continue to tell people, no, we don't need to look at these white papers anymore. We've seen enough back in 2016 to know how these things are going to end. So this is, of course, a decentralized protocol, which if you click on the company's website, something's supposed to happen, says it right there that it's decentralized, and yet they are announcing a full rollback because they're clearly not secure. And we're not going to waste too much time on this, so I'm also going to point out another so-called blockchain. This one called Thorchain. Again, something I never cared to pay attention to, like the other 3,000 shitcoins out there. And this one got hacked as well for 4,000 Ether. I can't believe people were dumb enough to put that much Ether on some of this nonsense. Mechanic, you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, sure. It's a fun point you made about the amount of blocks they have, because that's one thing that even like as early as Litecoin, people were just making that mistake, which was, hey, what if we take Bitcoin's structure and make blocks faster? Because everyone hates waiting 10 minutes for a transaction to get in a block, right? And they don't realize the trade-off that comes with that. The more data you have to process every time there's a block, the more centralized or the more centralization pressure there is on pools, because every other pool that isn't the pool that just mined the block that was mined has to download and verify it. So if it takes you 3 seconds to do that, when there was out of every 10-minute period, you don't give the big pool too much of an advantage because they already have the block, right? But you've got to download it and verify it. But if there's blocks every 20 seconds or something like there has to be for these newer protocols, then if there's any data at all, it's basically just saying, yeah, we're centralized. We're not attempting to be decentralized. And the whole thing is just, it exposes what a scam all of these things are. And the word decentralization as well, it's just an absolute joke at this point. Like, people they'll just throw that label onto anything without any ethics or any scruples whatsoever. I want to say offensive. These people will just get up there and be like, yeah, we got a project. I run a project. I'm the CEO of this decentralized project. Like, what are you talking about? You don't, if you're that dishonest with it, like this, how is it not just an outright scam at this point? Like, how can anyone go into the details of it and start going, oh, this is interesting? Like, you're just lying there on the front page saying you're decentralized when you can't be. So I don't know. I'm incredulous, guys.
Yeah. So yeah, it's exactly it. And the thing is, when this happens, these developers, the people behind the project, is like, oh, but hey, things break. It's things happen, shit happens. It's okay. We're gonna make it better. Please give us more money, Jimmy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about Haven, but like a rollback like that is a pretty drastic measure to take. I don't think people realize just how big a deal that is. Like, doing a rollback to a particular point in time, it's essentially saying all of these other transactions that happened afterwards are null and void. That's
Jimmy, hold on. Did you actually read this? They literally say, we feel that this is the best block to roll into. It's like they took a vote, like, hey, which block should we use?
Yeah, and it's a really strange thing to be saying that you're not centralized when you like vote and then go do whatever. Like, this isn't any sort of, this is sort of like the illusion of control, right? Like, this is why I don't vote in democratic elections, because your vote doesn't actually matter. It's giving the impression that your vote matters when in fact it doesn't. This is what they wanted to do in the first place, and this is probably what they recommended to their users, and the users didn't know any better, so they said, okay, let's go with that. It's completely centralized with like decentralization theater. The one that I do know something about is Thorchain, and that was very interesting. Like, they're like, okay, we lost 4,000, it wasn't 13,000, as if it's any better. But the thing about Thorchain is that Eric Voorhees and Shapeshift and everybody there have been promoting this thing like for a long time. And I think Eric Voorhees in like April of this year basically says, it's secure. We have an audit and all this other stuff. And then this happens. I mean, this just goes to show just how dishonest, like these audits are. Like, they give this impression of security when in fact there is no actual security there. And people like Voorhees, I used to be nicer to him, but I mean, like, you really have to call him a scammer at this point. He like, the only thing he seems to care about is the survival of his company, which is somewhat understandable. But he's like promoting all sorts of scams, calling things secure that are obviously not, and telling people that things are good when they're not, and like that like he's been an opponent of Bitcoin ever since 2x. He doesn't seem.
But he's been a bad actor. He's been a bad actor before that. I mean, he's had me blocked before 2x, I think.
Regardless, like he at this point, like, this is clearly a guy that does not know how to take an L. He cannot ever admit that he was ever wrong on anything. Ask him about Salt or whatever his other coin was, and nobody will, like
what's his Twitter handle? Because he has me blocked, so I can't even find him. I was gonna show you guys.
I think it's Eric Voorhees. Just Eric Voorhees. No,
just Eric Voorhees. Yeah, I can't find him because he's had me blocked for a really long time.
Yeah, I know, no doubt about it. You're blocked or whatever. But yeah, this is I really have to start questioning like what he's doing. And if you're telling the public that a chain is secure, and you're followed by like close to 1 million people, I think, and it ends up not being, you really need to come out and say I fucked up, right? Like you need to say. You need to apologize, but this guy does not know how to apologize. He just
he's building another
blames something else, and this is. If I'm a Shapeshift customer or anybody that's associated with Shapeshift, I'd be completely ashamed of the CEO. He's not like that. This is a death PR move. If you say something is secure and it ends up getting exploited, that's egg on your face, man. And more people need to know about this kind of stuff.
I got to give a slightly different take on Eric Voorhees because I don't know him personally, but other people I know do. And from what I've been led to believe, the scamming happens on your end if you listen to Eric Voorhees, but not his end. And I hope this doesn't come across as an apology, but what it is for Eric Voorhees, I'm told, is that he has this mix of arrogance and just complete technical lack of understanding. So it's a genuine thing. Like, we need blocks to be bigger, and just doesn't understand the technology and is too arrogant to listen to people. That's not the same as scamming, but it is scamming in essence if you listen to him and you invest in the kind of things he advises in, because he just doesn't technology.
Yeah, but you can't tell people it's secure when you're technically like unable to understand what's going on. And I don't know, maybe he listened to one of his employees or something like that. But you need to come out with an apology. If you said it was secure, April 21st of this year, I believe, he said that Thorchain is secure, and then it gets hacked. You need to come out and say I fucked up, and he's not doing that. I don't know. I'm like not that. Like I used to like him. I've had cordial relationships with him, and I've talked to him, and I've tried to be civil with him. But this is a massive screw up that he needs to come clean about. And I don't know if he has it in him, because I don't know if he knows how to apologize. He just does not apologize. He's very much.
All right, guys, we're spending way too much time on this.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. All right.
Move on.
All right, we got to move on, but just quick thing. Is he involved in Thorchain, or is just a shitcoin he was promoting?
I believe he's involved, but I'm not entirely sure, because Michael Perkland, who also works at Shapeshift, was telling me about it back in March, and I was like, "What the hell is Thorchain?" And it was a Bitcoin panel that I was on with him, and he like in a pre-call, he was talking about Thorchain and all that. So he clearly had been doing something with it, and I don't know, but whatever it is, I'm sure it's a shitcoin. That doesn't matter.
And one more quick question, because Mechanic might know this. Which shitcoin was Haven built on top of?
Wasn't it Monero?
Is it Monero?
Yeah, I'm 90% sure.
Okay. Wait, speaking of Monero, man, people got really heated after our Monero video.
I wish I could have been there.
It's built on Monero. Yeah, it's built on Monero.
It is built on Monero. All right, so it's a shitcoin built on top of a shitcoin protocol built on top of a shitcoin. All right, perfect. Got it.
It's all it's centralization all the way down. It doesn't matter what your features are.
Yeah, back in the day, the Bitcoin Uncensored guys used to refer to this as turtles all the way down.
Yeah.
if anyone is
ironically that what's his name is huge Monero fan and like an opponent of Bitcoin now.
Oh, DeRose, yeah, but then he kind of left the space because because probably lost too much money holding Monero. Okay, speaking of shitcoins, so this was interesting. Jackson Palmer comes out of witness protection and once again complains about capitalism, of all things. He's out of San Francisco. For those of you that don't know Jackson Palmer, he's the creator of Dogecoin. So the guy that decided to print an infinite amount of money, whose project totally failed until Elon Musk resurrected it, comes out. Here's what bothers me. He literally, like in his freaking tweet, he's like, I believe that cryptocurrency is an inherently right-wing, hyper-capitalistic technology built primarily to amplify the wealth of its proponents through a combination of tax avoidance, diminished regulatory oversight, and artificially enforced scarcity. And this is the guy that created one of the most
but where are the bad parts? He hasn't said anything bad.
Right. And the annoying part is 35,000 people like this tweet. That is a problem.
Here's the thing. Like, this is his first tweet in like several years, I think, or something like that. He might have had a small tweet before, but he did come out of hiding. And obviously Dogecoin's been getting a lot of press because of Elon Musk. I really like Grubel's response to this. He's like, this guy spent 2 hours making Dogecoin like 4 years ago. And he seems to think that he's now like the expert on all things cryptocurrency because he spent 2 hours making it. And of course, he didn't pre-mine anything. And, like basically it's kind of funny.
Well, isn't it just the same as ever? Like a guy with socialistic tendencies who never did any actual work, who made a meme once, has a bunch of clout and wants to piss and shit all over the people that have done a lot of hard work for over a decade. It's just normal, right? Just armchair criticism.
I think that describes pretty much every politician I've ever known.
I mean, and this tweet is just so wrong. Crypto did not enrich the rich people. Bitcoin created a whole slew of new millionaires, and they're going to be more wealthy than the old fiat rich people. Like, it's a complete wealth transfer to those that didn't have it before. This tweet is just insane.
Well, he just has a point of view that's completely economically illiterate, and that's true of pretty much every socialist I've ever met. He doesn't realize that socialism, Marxism, communism is responsible for more evil in the world than anything else, but he's a proponent of it because it makes him feel good. So, his feels versus, rational, like historical reality.
Yeah, I was going to get to Cuba. I mean, he should be there, so he actually knows what socialism is like. But we'll get to that story in a minute. But I was gonna pull this up in relation to shitcoins, but it doesn't matter. Luke Dash Jr.'s tweet from back in 2013. Pause the screen, read it, educated. All right, Jimmy. Speaking of attacks on capitalism, you had a good article written about this. Tell us about it.
Well, this is actually like aimed at a Christian audience, but it's a triumph of postmodern investing. And I'm basically talking about how investing has become completely irrational at this point, where like things like Hertz, that's a company that's bankrupt, the stock pumps after it goes bankrupt. I basically argue that it's sort of like a very postmodern thing that when you take out fundamentals like yield as a result of essentially infinite money printing, you can't measure anything, and as a result, it becomes like just a popularity contest, which is the entire market. And I asked the question, okay, what's the difference between Amazon stock and Doge? Both of them essentially you just buy because the number go up, and that's it. And if the number goes up, then all is right in the world without any regard to what's actually getting built underneath or whatever. And that's a really bad thing, because at this point, large companies will always get bailed out and so on.
I'm sorry, Jimmy. Mm-hmm. Amazon builds a lot of stuff. You can't compare.
Yeah, exactly. But like, as far as the investor is concerned, there's no real difference, right? Like as long as the number goes up, there's no dividends involved, no yield involved. So it's all about just the number go up. So the fundamentals ultimately don't matter. And that's the current mentality that the market is in. And you know, towards the end, I'm basically saying, okay, if you want to build civilization, you're going to have to invest in things that actually matter and make sense and have merit, instead of whatever just happens to be popular, because we're going to get a lot more Dogecoins and things like that. This gets into a lot of philosophy. I think this ultimately comes down to, you know, like kind of like morality without God, which is what Nietzsche explored. It's you know, what is a market when you can't measure anything and you don't have any sort of merit? You get sort of like postmodern values. And that's essentially decivilizing. It brings down civilization and causes its slow decline. So you know, that's what the article is about. Send it to whoever, and yeah, the market currently is a Keynesian beauty contest. If you haven't heard that term, it's a very interesting way of looking at the market and so on. So, but yeah, there you go.
You link to it in the article.
Yeah.
I saw that, but I didn't click the link.
It was a great article.
Yeah. What are your comments, Mechanic? You read it?
Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, different people will invest in the same thing for different reasons. And, you know, just like even with something that's solid like Bitcoin, which I would argue is the best thing you could possibly buy, that doesn't stop people from buying it for the stupidest reasons, right? Like, there are people that will buy it on KYC exchanges and all that because they think they can sell it and not pay any tax. And I'm like, well, I don't think you've thought this through, because you're doing everything through regulated means. It doesn't avoid any tax. Like, that's not the best example, but people can buy stuff for stupid reasons, even if it's good stuff, but you can't really stop it. You get this whole gambling element inside stocks that is inappropriate, but it's always going to be there. People are always going to buy stuff without doing due diligence, and it's annoying. Ideally, we want to live in a world where people only invest in stuff and products they've done their due diligence on and products they believe in. But I mean, the trouble is it's irrational, right? But it's not irrational. It's rational to buy a stupid stock if you know everyone else is going to buy that stupid stock, right? And also, I mean, just to play devil's advocate, literally in this case, like people have acknowledged, are sort of acknowledging the fact. I know I disagree with you a bit on this tone as well with GameStop. People are just saying this whole game is rigged, and they're kind of, I'm going all over the place theologically here, but they're chasing the money changers out of the temple, right? They're saying like, look, the actual exchanges are corrupt. They're screwing with people's ability to buy and sell when they want, and they're nannying them, saying you can't buy any more GameStop, we don't think it's safe. And you know, people are just saying this whole thing's rigged. The ledgers themselves are rigged. People are shorting more stock than actually exists. There's all sorts of discrepancies and bugs here. So, and I think they're just sort of, you know, they're saying we're playing a game of basketball, but that's it. We're running outside the stadium and just changing the rules completely. We're using a cricket ball now instead. We're bringing a gun to the match, like just completely breaking all the rules. Like the whole thing's just gone absurd, man. And I don't really know what to make of it, but rationality, like it would be nice to see a return to that, but I have no idea how we're going to get back there.
Bitcoin is how we're going to get back there.
Yeah.
Hope so,
yeah, no, I was definitely out on an island on that GameStop debate, because I was on the side of, yeah, the exchanges need to stop the ability for people to trade, because people are going to get freaking crushed when that thing eventually crashes. Because people were like, literally, that was the problem. People are buying GameStop at like $400 a share, and the company failed. Yeah, the reason why a hedge fund was short so much is because the company failed. It wasn't because they wanted to destroy a company. That company was destroyed. I mean, their business model, especially during COVID, was not exactly useful.
Yeah, I mean, but no one wants to be on the side of won't somebody please think of the hedge funds? No one. That's just such an impossible argument to make.
Yeah, I know. That's why everyone got pissed at me for making that argument. All right, let's move on to you know, more pressing issues. So this is big once again. Lots of geopolitical news. I'm probably going to bring up a few stories and then let you guys comment on all of them. let's start with the central bank digital currency. So we've been covering this topic for over 5 years now. And now, now that the governments of the world have learned how easily it is to manipulate people and to control and do whatever the hell they want, this is their chance to eliminate their paper currency for the central bank digital currency. As usual, since there may be some new viewers, there are two things to this for me personally. One, every single government already has a central bank digital currency. I just don't understand why we're discussing it in such a way. 98% of all US dollars are digital. I believe more than 99% of all euros are digital. There's not that many paper euros. They've eliminated the 500 euro, can't find it anywhere. Good luck finding a 100 euro note. Good luck finding a 50 euro note these days, right? Meanwhile, inflation is going up and up and up, and soon it will be like India, where your biggest bill is equivalent to $5 worth of goods. So for me, this is simply a push to eliminate paper money. But if they can create a whole new money, why not? They'll just create a whole new money because clearly government employees need more work for some reason, so they can get paid more money that they just print. The other issue with the central bank digital currency is that for some reason, people are cheering the elimination of private banks. People want to hold their money directly with the central bank instead of a private entity. And I think that is a really bad idea. As much as people hate private banks because governments tell them what to do a little too much, having all your money at the central bank is worse, because the moment they don't like you, they freeze and confiscate the money. Jimmy, your thoughts?
Yeah, the digital euro, like if you talk about CBDCs, they're like a bureaucrat's like wet dream, right? Like, because you could surveil everybody, you can basically socially engineer in ways that you really couldn't before. Stalin or Hitler would have loved this, right? Like being able to manage the economy at sort of like the individual level by saying, okay, you're allowed to do this transaction or you're not allowed to do this transaction. That's more or less what they did with their economies, and sort of like a very command and control and no freedom whatsoever. And this is why, like they're both called socialists. It's, one's right socialist and one's left socialist, but they're both socialists.
Right, and Jimmy, on that note, everything. When I was a kid in Russia, Soviet Russia, there was one bank. There was, the Soviet Union Bank. That's it. There was one bank where everyone had their money. And when my family left Russia, we were only allowed to leave with $100 per family member. Wow. When you defect from the country. This is what happens when your money is at a central bank.
Yeah, and this is what's going to happen, is that they can control their citizens that much more. And who knows what the future of the euro is? Especially as like Britain's exiting and all this other stuff, and there's a lot of strife and uprisings in various places and stuff that are inevitable once as this thing is going. But this should horrify people, right? Like having a digital euro or a digital yuan or a digital dollar. It's a complete loss of freedom. Cash is going to disappear. They're going to regulate absolutely everything because they can, and they're going to limit your freedom. It's going to become more and more like a police state. There's going to be more power concentrated in the hands of a few. It's not a good thing. Yet, they're making it out to be some sort of like innovation that they're doing. It's a power grab, like most government things.
I agree in every way. I think it's the currency equivalent of like a hard fork, cleaning up some technical debt, where they're going, okay, we're just keeping everything that's become awful about fiat currency and just getting rid of a few annoying things, which is, cash still exists a little bit and we're done with it and we want to get rid of it. And And what's funny about it is how brazen and open they're being. I mean, you've seen this Gustine guy, right? The incredibly fat guy from the International Bank of Settlements, or like,
Yeah,
I mean,
by the way, one of the first tweets. This is like 3 years ago or something. It's an old tweet, like a picture of him, and it's like 3 or 4 years ago, and it says the final boss Bitcoin needs to defeat from like the old video games.
yeah, because we called him in Slack. We call him Senor Bullet Sponge because the idea is you could just fire. He's like the final boss, so you just have to fire 800 rounds into him because he just absorbs them all, like Robotnik from Sonic. You remember, just like this huge fat guy.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, he just sits there in this video saying like, look, we need to have this thing because we have some problems. You know, it helps us because, you know, there are some ways to use cash illegally and because we can't surveil the transaction. But with CBDCs, we can block anything we want. So fantastic. Like they're so divorced from reality. And my only hope with CBDCs is that like every time the government undergoes a huge IT project, it seems that they fuck it up and they hire really incompetent people. So, I mean, the first time I learned about that was when we did the NHS, the health system in the UK. They did a $12 million, a £12 million overhaul of the NHS computer system, and it ended up costing 12 billion instead of 12 million, which was just unreal. They were out by a factor of 1,000. And it notoriously just didn't work properly at all. And
Yeah,
then
Obamacare had similar problems. And
but then
dude, that it was pretty bad, and it was like
yeah, that was
such
brutal.
grift and corruption all involved.
But the thing is, when after the NHS screw up, we had the Olympic Games in London a few years later, and they used the same guy, the same consultant, to do the project again. And it was just because he was some friend of Tony Blair's, I think. And he was a friend of Tony Blair, and then by the London Olympics, I think we had David Cameron by then. But that's my only hope, guys, is that the CBDCs are implemented by incompetent government IT guys that just don't know what they're doing. And I've seen two different opinions on this. One, which is Matt Hill, the CEO of Embassy, saying, you know, we need to pressure anyone that has, any software developers. They cannot work for the government. They cannot feed the machine. And then Thomas Strolllight, who says, no, you absolutely have to go and work for the government to ensure that the projects fuck up. So I'm not sure which way you stand on that, but I like I like the idea of sabotage, I got to say.
Well, large infrastructure projects, IT infrastructure projects are like one of the top reasons for CEOs getting fired. I don't know if anyone can really get fired in the sort of bureaucracy, but it wouldn't surprise me if it gets completely like screwed up and nothing works and nobody can transact and all this stuff. It really wouldn't surprise me because a lot of government contractors are there because they're there to get government contracts, not because they're capable. So it will be very interesting to see. I'll say that much.
Yeah, there needs to be a greater financial incentive for competent software developers to go and work on projects that pay them really well. And for all the dregs left, the people that aren't very good at what they do, they're the people the government can employ. I hope that's the case.
Well, so they have that in the US as a result of like the healthcare.gov stuff. They actually like hired a bunch of really good software developers, and it sort of had this like patriotic tone, like serve your country, and they only let you in there for like 2 to 4 years and then you get out. But it's for developers that are actually competent, and most of the time they're there to go rescue like legacy systems that are completely broken and things like that. And when some department in the US federal government breaks, they come in, fix it, and make it so that it's sustainable, and then they pay them pretty well, and they report, I think, directly to the president. So yeah, that's one way to do it. This is how you sort of cut through bureaucracy, is by having a direct line to the person in charge. But you guys know how I feel about government.
Yeah. All right, guys. Hey, also, some people said my volume was too low. I think I raised it a little bit, so hopefully the audio is evened out. But between the an insanely fat guy from the BIS, Banco International Settlements, and like the straight up out of the James Bond movie villains, the guy from the World Economic Forum. Like, you can't make this shit up. Do they like just find these people because they've watched too many of these movies, like, or played video games? It's crazy how these guys look like that. Wait,
Well,
so
speaking of, they keep saying the quiet part out. They keep saying the quiet part out loud, right? It's like that doctor that keeps going on CNN saying we need to punish people that don't take vaccines. Like, you know, that crazy lady keeps saying, like, life is too easy for unvaccinated people. We need to create arbitrary restrictions. Right. And everyone's like, shh, you keep saying the quiet part out loud. Like, it's like, sorry, I'll cut you off, man.
Yeah, no, there was one. I remember watching one. It was an interview with this Asian doctor, and she was like, she was American, and she's like, people are getting their freedoms back, and that's not good. Like, she literally said that on like CNN.
Yeah,
it was insane.
But you're not supposed to admit that that's the agenda, guys. Like, no, but actually, maybe there is game theory in there, and they're trying to rile people up and make them angry at the anti-vaxxers. Anyway, let's stop with this tangent. My bad.
All right. I'm gonna try to raise my volume one more time. Hopefully, it'll be better.
Yeah, but I mean, Christine Lagarde too, right? Like, she's convicted money launderer. Nothing happened. Like, so you can screw up an IT project. There's no way you're getting fired for that. If you can be a convicted money launderer and not even get demoted, like, she's still top of the. I don't even know what organization she's a part of. Christine Lagarde. Is it just the European?
She's the head of the IMF, International Monetary Fund, which is like probably the biggest banking cartel in the world. So obviously, should be she literally is the head of the money laundering operation of the world. Anyway, speaking of more dumb European ideas, all this talk about Bitcoin being demonized for mining. So Europe is going to try to do what China did, because all of the socialist governments love China. Everything China does, they wish they can do more of. And now they're going to be considering getting rid of proof of work mining. So there's definitely an attack on proof of work mining from many, many areas. I'm going to go through the stories. So we had a lot of hope for Paraguay, where they could have also declared that Bitcoin is money. They don't have to make it legal tender. They could have just said, hey, it's money, you can accept it. We're not going to treat it as property, but they did decide to treat it as property, just like the US as well. So now anytime you want to buy a cup of coffee with your Bitcoin, you need to start calculating the tax side of the situation. That's what happens when you call it property. So that news wasn't all that, great or useful. And of course, the Cubans are revolting because they don't have enough COVID vaccines. That's the reason. It's not.
It's not because they want freedom,
Right.
Or
it can't possibly be that. I mean, socialism is absolutely incredible, and all
what gets me. What gets me about that? People that are genuinely scared of COVID don't go to mass protests without masks on, for God's sake. Like, I'm seeing pictures of a bunch of people standing. If you're scared of COVID, you don't go with 10,000 people marching through the street. You don't do it. You stay at home with your door locked.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they should do. They should wait until COVID's over to actually protest for their freedom.
It's unreal, man.
Right.
Like,
any other geopolitical thoughts, guys?
It's called COVID, man. I can't help but soapbox and rant about COVID. Like, it only just dawned on me yesterday that how do you make people en masse hate and resent mass protests? You can only do it with a contagious virus, because now everyone literally hates protesters because they're like, they're spreading variants. They're the ones making us have to keep on with these lockdowns. Like, people tolerated protest before if it was from a political ideology they didn't agree with. But now people see what's going on in France and Greece. The people that are scared of COVID, that have drank the Kool-Aid, they hate the protesters because they think they're literally killing people by getting together in groups. I mean,
But dude,
That's
look, even CoinDesk is saying how the Cubans are protesting, you know, like, and even CoinDesk is talking about a ever worsening COVID-19 crisis.
well, CoinDesk isn't. It's not Bitcoin Magazine, is it? I don't know if it's like the
No,
blog.
it's Barry's blog is how I think of it now. Like it's like pushes whatever his companies are doing or
Barry
whatever.
Silver's blog, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
Anyway, yeah, it's out of control. Let's not go down. I go down the COVID rabbit hole enough. All right, we just got a few more stories to cover. So we've gone full circle, and you know, everyone has started doing their decentralized insane projects, whether it's identity, whether it's all this other stuff, and they were building it on their own blockchains, and then they were building it on Ethereum and other unsecured centralized databases. At least we've come full circle where people are at least realizing that if I'm going to build something, anything in a somewhat questionable decentralized world, it needs to be done on Bitcoin. So at least they're finally, after what, 6-7 years of stupid, finally realizing that at least I need to build on top of Bitcoin. So now that they're building on top of Bitcoin, we can start debating the merits of projects. For example, I love this story because one of the most evil spying machines, Microsoft, is going to give you decentralized identity because of the big tech spying companies. Like, how else can you read this other than laugh at the complete irony and hypocrisy here? Thoughts?
Well, I know Daniel, and you know, I think what he's trying to do is pretty noble, and it is kind of cool that
Does
you
he
can
realize where he's working?
Well, that's just who pays him, I guess. But essentially, it's a lot like what Christopher Allen's been trying to do with sort of like a decentralized web of trust. PGP is obviously very difficult to use. I use it, but not that many people do because it is very annoying and so on. I think doing something like you know, DIDs on top of Bitcoin and using Bitcoin transactions as a way to revoke a key and so on. It's very clever and very interesting. And, you know, I don't know if it necessarily needs to be on chain or whatever, but there's definitely something to this, which I like. I don't know if the trade-off is worth it necessarily, because you do have to sort of quote unquote pollute the blockchain a little bit with stuff. But yeah, I mean, there are sort of like Bitcoin purists that would say, hey, like you should only use it for certain types of transactions that are actually economic instead of, you know, this stuff. I'm not sure where I stand on that. I reserve my judgment until I see it actually happening in the wild.
It's a complicated topic, this one, and I'm hesitant to opine on it because it's super interesting but it's super conflicting, right? Like, as you say, Microsoft's involvement is a massive mark against the project, and Microsoft always do this. You know, have you read up on the history of embrace, extend, extinguish? Like, this has been cited as an actual leaked policy, and so many companies have filed lawsuits against Microsoft and actually cited that policy, saying, look, Microsoft have got involved, they want to destroy what we're doing. And the way the process by which it's not like the project existed in a particularly manifested sense before Microsoft got involved, as far as I know anyway. But it's the one thing I have to say really that stands out about it, I think, is just the surveillance element of it. I don't really know how that's been handled, because that's going to be the problem, really. That's going to be one of many problems with it. But surveillance worries me a lot with something like this. I like some of the ideas of the project, though, at the same time. Honestly, I wish I could give a better take on this, because it's so nuanced and so complicated, and I have so much respect for Daniel working on it. Yeah, of course he realizes where he works, because it's the first thing everyone brings up the minute he starts talking about his project, because Bitcoiners aren't particularly, you know, none of us are fans of Microsoft, and that's obviously who's paying him. I don't know exactly. I don't want to ramble on too long about it, because every time I look at the project, I'm just both fascinated and both repulsed. So it's a very difficult one.
So let's talk about the merits of the project real quick. So what people like, the good and the bad part of Bitcoin is that, yes, you are your own bank, but also you can delete all of your money, right? So in this case, what happens if you have a decentralized identity and you forgot your password?
Well,
your private key?
You're not limited to one. You can make as many decentralized identities as you want, right? I don't think it actually interfaces with government identity system, right? So the point is, you can have. I'm speculating here, but I understand you can make multiple identities and multiple identifiers, which is the point, right? You can be. I'm called Grass-Fed Bitcoin on Twitter, but I'm not called that on YouTube. I'm called, Bitcoin Mechanic on YouTube or whatever. They're all different identifiers. They can all come from one identity, but you can make another identity as well. So I think that's the nobility of the project, which is, you can spend a long time building up a reputation, a Twitter account or something with thousands of followers, and that's a kind of work, right? That's a lot of work doing that, but it doesn't belong to you. The identifier that links to your identity belongs to Twitter or the social media platform. So the idea that can be linked to something that is somewhat immutable is a noble project, and I like it. The issue is, I don't understand what Microsoft's role is in it, and I don't understand how the actual platform operates and how much control you have and how much control you don't have.
All right, so let's also move on. Well, Jack Dorsey is also getting involved in something similar, but this time with financial services. They don't have a name for a project yet. I'm assuming there's not going to be a shitcoin involved. So let's hope it stays that way. I'm not familiar with Seller. Also not familiar with Tidal, familiar with the Cash App. So again, more decentralized projects coming. Now they're going to get built on top of Bitcoin. But are these the kinds of things that can actually be decentralized, or there still needs to be a central backup database for a lot of this stuff?
Well, if it's a business, I think that part is definitely going to be centralized. I think what they want to do is make protocols that can be decentralized, so you can run your own business that's very similar or something to that effect. Like Lightning is pretty decentralized, and that's where I believe they're going to build this thing. So we'll see where things go, but yeah, I don't know. Like it's very vague at this point, and I want to see where they actually go with it before like sort of judging what they're doing as good or bad. But I mean, they're committing some money, and Jack's pretty good at that. He's committed a lot of money over the past couple of years onto Bitcoin projects. We really haven't seen the fruits yet, so it's the sort of thing that you're going to have to wait 5 years to know whether or not it's like something worth looking at.
Mechanic, you just DM me something. Should I click on it and open it for the world?
Yeah, I mean, it's tinfoil hat mode, but I mean, at the same time, I don't know. See if you can read that out. It's 3 tweets in a thread, I think. Oh, it's 4.
Okay. Is this a reply to Jack?
This is in response.
It's a subtweet, yeah.
It's about the hardware wallet development that Jack is doing.
Oh, so Jack is building a hardware wallet too.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. You're a billionaire. You want to help Bitcoin. There are multiple high-quality software companies that already exist and that are open source, non-custodial, and with highly skilled, hardened teams of genius level fanatics who are ready to die on the hill of Bitcoin. What is your best move to help Bitcoin adoption and strengthen the services industry? I know I'll set up a company to steal market share from these companies, drain them of money and users, and put them out of business. I mean, he's got a little bit of a point there. Microsoft, another evil company, had the business strategy called Embrace, Extend, and Extinguish. I guess dollars, millions of dollars,
Microsoft.
I guess. or I think it means millions of dollars
No,
worth
I
of
think
Microsoft.
yeah, Microsoft were terrified if Linux. Yeah.
Terrified of Linux became popular, their entire business model would be a thing. Look, here's where I have a problem. Here's where like my biggest problem lies with Jack Dorsey. He's the CEO of Twitter. Twitter has become toxic in censoring actual free speech. If there's anything good Jack can do for the world is to fire these damn fact checkers off of Twitter and only allow them to delete accounts and delete tweets of harmful content, not content that they disagree with politically. That's the greatest thing Jack can do for humanity. And until he starts doing that, I have not been given him much respect at all.
Yeah, it's hard because Twitter is a centralized platform, and they're getting all sorts of government pressure, and they're based in San Francisco, so of course they have very liberal leaning people that work there. And I don't know if you watch like the Joe Rogan podcast where Jack Dorsey was on there with I'm not sure who she was, but like pretty much like that guy Tim I forget, Tim Pool, he was like pointing out, okay, you censored kicked these people off the platform and you have done nothing for these liberal people. And she's like, we'll look into it. And of course nothing's happened. So it's obviously a biased platform, but this is what happens with anything centralized. And this is why I'm really excited about something like Lightning, where you really can't get censored because it's not centralized, it's decentralized. And if you do have something like a decentralized Twitter, we're seeing something like that with Sphinx Chat a little bit, where people put out their tweets and you subscribe to whoever's content you want, and no one can really stop you because it's a network. And as long as you're connected to the network in some way, and anyone can let you on the network pretty much, that is willing to open a connection with you, then you can go get that content. And furthermore, you could get paid for it. And that adds like sort of Sybil resistance and all this other stuff. So, like I get your sort of like, anger against Jack. And, to some degree, I can see this conspiracy theory that Beauty On is saying like play out too. I'm not really sure that's the case. I could see it. It is possible. I just don't think that's the way Jack rolls. He seems more to be sort of like a CEO, kind of like trapped by the rest of the company. And this is something that a lot of CEOs will tell you, is that, I feel kind of powerless because there's all this momentum going in like one direction. And I wish I could do things differently. This is why he's starting a new thing, because then he can really like put his stamp on it and make it what he wants it to be, instead of sort of like all the stakeholders in Twitter, which is the public markets, all the people that own a lot of shares. And, they're the ones that ultimately run Twitter because it's a public company. But with something private like that, he can definitely have a lot more control. And I think that's why he's making it.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, there's so many ways you can look at it, and I'm always trying to understand it. When it comes to Jack Dorsey and Twitter, like Tone, it's like the opposite of what you're saying sometimes, because the worse they go with the censorship, the more it makes people use Mastodon. Hopefully they can actually host their own instance of it over Tor, get an embassy, everyone. Like, if you're sick of Facebook and Twitter, great. Just do it properly. Do social networking in a decentralized manner. That's why I actually appreciate them being ridiculous about, with the censorship. I appreciate it because it stops people from using it. I'm not going to ask Twitter to be better. I'm just going to use something better. Maybe Jack's just like, burn it to the ground. Let's just be as ridiculous as possible. Let's ban tweets that have no wrong information in them whatsoever, that are written by doctors, that that might give someone somewhere motivation not to get the vaccine. Let's remove that tweet. Annoy everyone. I'm happy with it. I like seeing it. It's also just like, the worse banks treat their customers, the easier it is for me to shill Bitcoin. So, I'm kind of, there's that angle too. But I basically agree with what Jimmy's saying. I think Jack is just in a place where any good he wants to do, Twitter is just done. He can't do anything with it. it's impossible for him to bring it back to reality. So he can just work on a platform where this kind of corruption can't happen in the first place. And that's the best view I have on, that's the best way I can frame it for him. And hopefully that's the reality. You're muted, man. You're muted.
Sorry, I was on mute. Mechanic mentioned Embassy. I don't have them on my affiliate page, but if you're looking for a link, Unconfiscatable, they were a sponsor. Embassy is a product by Start9, and they're around here somewhere. There they are. So you can go ahead and click on that. Hopefully that still works. So that's their Embassy. It's your own personal node and lots of other stuff. Definitely a product that I support myself as well. All right, quick word of caution. Be careful when going on dates. You could be drugged for your Bitcoin story. Lop mentioned it, and Bitcoin Magazine picked it up. I actually, knew of a similar story like this back in Thailand from like 2015 or 16 when I was there. It happened to like a guy like just a few days earlier. So he was talking about it at the meetup that he got drugged at a club, and then he woke up and his Bitcoin was hacked from his phone. He was just happy to be alive. So that's what happened. So make sure you protect your Bitcoin from strange Tinder dates.
Yeah, just drink water, guys. Like don't drink and from like a plastic bottle that you can confirm by opening the cap or something like that. Like just receiving drinks from strangers is just speaking from a guy who's still hurting from yesterday, and and neither of my two co-hosts are going to be going on are Tinder users, for obvious reasons. But
what worries me about this story is it was scopolamine he got spiked with, this guy, which turns, have you read about what scopolamine does?
No, what does it do?
It's a date rape drug, right? It takes your memory away too. Oh, wait, is that the one where they can tell you what to do?
Yeah, it's like it turns you into a zombie slave with no memory. And the stories you hear about of people that have taken it, someone will wake up and be like, "Hey, where's all my stuff?" And then go and ask their neighbor, and their neighbor will be like, "What do you mean? I saw you yesterday take all of your stuff, put it in a truck, and then the guy drove away with it." Like that's and you'll just do what you're told with no free will. It's like some sort of evil form of hypnosis, because under hypnosis you can't actually do stuff against your own interest. Like you can't get people to kill themselves when they're hypnotized, but on scopolamine people will just do whatever they're told. So this scares me with Bitcoin, because you could have a really sophisticated setup with your Bitcoin storage, right? This guy was a cryptocurrency trader, so he probably just had everything sitting on Binance or some degenerate situation like that. But like,
this guy in particular had most of his coins with Casa, and that's why they publicized it, because they're
really?
It was he didn't lose anything.
I thought
he only lost the ones on his phone. The ones that were on the Casa were multi-sig, and he couldn't lose those.
Well, that's good, and I'm glad to hear that. So scopolamine isn't able to get you to actually I mean, they do different setups, Casa, right? They have one with, I think it's, you
usually have to like call them and do stuff. And also like if you have keys in different bank vaults or whatever, you need to be on that drug for multiple days in order to actually unlock your coin. So I don't think they were willing to do that.
Yeah, they just drained his Coinbase or whatever.
Or just his phone, I think.
Security is going to have to step up a notch on this one, because this could be an issue. Maybe we'll talk more about Bitcoin security and how to protect from something like this in the future. That seems like an interesting topic. And
multi-sig, man. Multi-sig is how you defend against stuff like this. Like I mean, Jimmy, how possible is it at the moment for you to set up a situation where like you can have a 1 of 3 and you can spend your own coins you want, but there's a covenant where it takes over a certain amount of time for the coins to actually do something, or you can do a 2 of 3 and then they move straight away. How realistic is it to see something like that?
Well, covenants are, you could do some covenants, but like you kind of have to throw away your private key, which most people don't want to do. Um, like basically make it so that there's only one way out because you throw away the private key. I think that's how Brian Bishop's doing it for Avanti and stuff. Um, but yeah, I mean, there are possible covenants once we get different soft forks like OpCat or OpCheckSig from Stack or something like that. But yeah, and obviously OpCTV, that's Jeremy's big, covenant, opcode that he really, really, really wants in
Yeah,
Bitcoin.
he really wants that in there.
But that would be the way to do. There are multiple ways to do covenants, and there are sort of small changes to the protocol to make it happen, which would be interesting. Yeah, right now I think the best you can do is some sort of like time degradation. It's like one of three after a few years or something like that, but two of three in the meantime, something like that. So you can't do one of three until a certain amount of time passes, by which time you might have moved it already. So yeah, and Taproot makes that even easier, and you don't even reveal what the other conditions are. But you could do something like that.
That's
no
such a
real
good
covenants there.
anti-theft. That's such a good anti-theft mechanism. Saying, like for obvious reasons, when you're under duress, like, okay, if you want me to spend my coins and you want them right away, you need to get a bunch of other people under duress as well. Otherwise, I can totally spend the coins, but you're not going to have them for 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever, how many blocks. And that means
so you have to either time your attack, because you have to know the scripts that are in my output, or you're going to have to hold multiple people hostage, which doesn't really work. Yeah, but this is why, like, third party services where they'll hold a key for you, like Casa and Unchained, are pretty useful because they'll hold it. So usually the setup is something like it's two of three. You hold one key, they hold one key, and one key lives in some bank vault that's very hard to get to. And if you want to do a transaction, you do one, and then you call them, usually like some sort of video call, and you have some sort of safe word or whatever in case you're under duress, and you ask them to sign on their part. You don't have to use them, but it's more for convenience. And if they think something is up, then they're not going to sign it. And that's sort of like the way that security model works. And you can have multiple things like that where maybe you're signing 3 of 5 and they hold one of the keys, and 2 of them are in two different places all over the world that are very hard to get to, and so on. So there's a lot of different combos, and you can certainly do them.
What happens with these third parties in the long? Sorry, Tony, if you want to wrap it up, we can.
No, it's fine. No, it's a good discussion. I was gonna save it for next time, but keep going.
Yeah, what happens with these third parties, legally speaking? Because once upon a time, I wanted to set up, contingency for, a digital will, so to speak. And there was a woman called Pamela Morgan that ran Third Key Solutions that I was like, oh, well, judging by the name, I didn't really research it too much before I spoke to her, but I was like, okay, so you obviously hold one key in a multi-sig setup. And she was like, no, we don't do that because legal ramifications. We can't have law enforcement come to us and say, oh, we want to freeze this guy's assets. You have one of his keys. You're not allowed to spend his Bitcoin when he comes to you and says, hey, sign a transaction. So she's like, that's why we don't do it. And I was like, oh, okay, actually, well, that makes perfect sense. Of course you don't. And now we have all these services like Unchained Capital and Casa. And I'm like, has that problem changed at all? Where are we at?
Well, I mean, the idea is they don't have custody because they only have like 1 of 3 keys on a 2 of 3 multisig. So in a sense, the government can say you can't sign a transaction, and they can perfectly obey them. But for their customers, they can still move the coins. It's still your coins because you control the majority or whatever. And that's the way it should be. And I think that's the way it works. And yeah, I think that's a fine security model because you're protected against, like government intrusion because they only have one key and you have 2 keys. As long as you're good about like where you store them and so on, you should be okay. But at the same time, you're also protected against getting kidnapped or something like that when you're under duress, because two of the keys are require like either going to a place that's far away or speaking to this third party and so on. Now, if it's the government that kidnaps you, I don't know, like that's going to be very hard for you to protect against, because then they can force Unchained to sign and then like have you under duress and make you sign. So that's a little bit of a tough one if they're putting you in a concentration camp or something and saying, you need to sign this or else.
Then you need a dead man switch, right? Where every day, unless you press a button, your Bitcoins move to a new address. And one that, something like that. I mean, it's programmable money. So we have all these fun nerd scenarios we can figure out, right? And I love geeking out about stuff like this, like thinking about how you can bulletproof your money.
Yeah. And like no one's really come up with like the absolute best case, because we haven't had enough attacks kind of like this. The more attacks there are, the better it is for everyone else in a sense, because you learn, okay, what's the attack vector that we need to protect against? So for this one, clearly something like Casa or Unchained would have helped. But you need more clever robbers that are trying to take your money. And then as more people suffer attacks, the rest of the network sort of, grows more resilient or anti-fragile or whatever you want to call it. And that's one of the beautiful things about this network, is that like everyone's going to upgrade to, at least the people that are super security conscious, and especially the whales and so on. If you hear about an attack that was successful on something that was really, really well secured, well, you're going to protect at least against that scenario and probably that class of scenarios. And upgrade your security to protect against that. Try doing that with physical stuff. It's very hard, right? Like if like some bank vault gets broken into because of some vulnerability, and most bank vaults have that, it's gonna be kind of hard to upgrade those, and it's gonna take a significant amount of time. With Bitcoin, it's like, hey, you just move it to a new address.
True, man. One thing I want to say about that is I was shocked when I read a New York Times article a couple of years ago about the atrocious lack of security you get with bank vaults, because everyone assumes them to be the most resilient way to store something there is, and they're insured up to 10,000, right? And you can't go above that. And they say everywhere, like, look, this shouldn't be considered particularly secure. And people store Bitcoin private keys in them, which is even worse, because if someone actually looks at them, learns the private keys or the mnemonic, then you can just put it back and you don't even know that they've seen it, right? Like, I don't know. It's bank vaults are not... honestly, man, I know people that leave, Cassatius coins just sitting out on bookshelves and stuff, and I think that's probably. I honestly think security through, hiding in plain sight is often better than a lot of sophisticated methods of security. But, if by luck you survive rather than design, that's different.
Yeah, Cassatius coins on bookshelves. Who would ever do that?
Yeah.
That's like $30,000. So crazy.
All right. All right. Time to, I will promote your style. I am going to take a look at the price guides real quick, but we also want to promote some of the books that I don't know. You're not even a guest anymore, Jimmy. It's like you're a staple of the show.
I'm a co-host. Yeah, upgrade me, buddy. All right.
So go ahead. Go for it.
Yeah, so Programming Bitcoin is for programmers who want to learn Bitcoin. If you know Python, this is a great book to learn all of the fundamentals of the Bitcoin blockchain. I also have the Little Bitcoin book, which is a book for people that don't know much about Bitcoin but want to learn about it. It's a very quick read. It's 70 pages plus a Q&A section. And it's been written with lots of people from around the world. And of course, I have Thank God for Bitcoin, which is a moral argument for Bitcoin from a Christian perspective. And yeah, you can get all of these at Amazon. So if you go to locations, I am going to do the next seminar in Ensenada, Mexico. And that is going to be right before the Bitcoin Standard Conference. And it is a seminar to learn about Bitcoin. And you can look through the Twitter testimonials. There's a lot of them on some people that have been pretty prominent in this space, including people like Stepan Snigirev and Fabian
Nice
Yar
one.
and many others. But it is going to be 12th through the 15th, and I will be there. 10th and 11th are the actual. It says 11th through 13th. I thought it was 12th.
Well, that's the conference. Your workshop is the day before. I plan to be there as well.
Okay.
Here are your workshops.
There you go.
I will be attending Giacomo's workshop. Sorry, Jimmy. Well, one of these days, I'm going to upgrade my programming skills and attend yours.
Yeah. So I will be doing that there. I have a couple more that I'm trying to set up. So one in London in October and one in Atlanta in November. So stay tuned for that. And I will have those on my website soon as I figure out.
All right. In October, we are coming to Dubai as well for Understanding Bitcoin conference. Giacomo will probably teach a couple of workshops there. So keep that in mind. We're going to upgrade this page real soon. A bunch of awesome speakers have decided to come back. Peter Todd, who's not on this list, just had a chat with Christian Decker and Adam Back, Alex Petrov, Giacomo. Adam is very interested in coming back. Lawrence. So it's gonna be a great event.
I want to come just so I could get artwork done, because those are just so awesome looking. Like
so I don't know where we're going to next. Like, it was supposed to be in Malta, but Malta is on the mandated vaccine passport route.
Okay.
So I don't know if we'll ever go back to Malta. It's man, as much shit talk as I've talked about the US, at least we're not putting unvaccinated into potential concentration camps, which is what Europe wants to do. So
depends on the state.
Yeah, well, at least you can move out of that state, right, and go to another state. So Europe's becoming a mess. May never go to Europe again. Like, we'll see what happens.
It's rough, man. I'm from Europe, and all my family and friends are from there, and I don't ever really want to go back.
You got to get them out. That's
they don't want to. They're all taking the vaccine, and they're all mad at me for not wanting to do it. It's really sad, man. I've lost a lot of friends and family to COVID. It's a sad thing to say.
Not to death, but like political.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we mean. I don't mean no. I haven't lost anyone to actually the COVID disease. I don't know anyone that's caught COVID apart from. Well, I don't know. I don't want to say it on air, but I know like maybe one person now or two people that have caught COVID, but that's it. I know a lot of people that think they have, but then you catch a cold here anyway.
I'm slightly on the other side of that. Like, I definitely know people that have caught COVID. I do think it's a legitimate thing. I actually know someone that died of COVID legitimately, and he was in his 40s. And still, I think these vaccine mandates are beyond an infringement of human rights.
Yeah, I agree. I should pedal it back. It's a real disease, and it has killed some people. But other than that, I'll stop going on these COVID tangents. I'm sorry, guys. I just can't help it.
That's the world we're living in.
What I got to promote, that's my YouTube channel. Tom's got it there. I upgraded that crown thanks to Rusty. So that cartoon clown has now been that cartoon crown that you see there. If Tone refreshes it, you should see a fresh and amazing opulent crown.
Oh, nice.
There we go. That was, as Jimmy said, if he goes to the conference, he gets to have this amazing artwork done. It's all done by Rusty. Rusty's amazing.
Yeah, we'll get it done for you, Jimmy. Don't worry.
Yeah. So that's my YouTube channel. My next video I'm making is on compiling Bitcoin Core on Microsoft Windows, which is one of the most annoying videos I've ever had.
It's not easy, and it's amazing to think this is how Satoshi did it at the beginning, because there was no Linux binary.
What makes me laugh so much is that in the README for Bitcoin Core, it just says Right. You want to compile Bitcoin Core on Windows. Cool. Step 1, install Ubuntu on your Windows.
Yeah, I mean, WSL works great. I love Windows subsystem Linux, and you can just run Linux stuff on Windows. But yeah, I mean, back then, obviously, they didn't have that. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
So
guys. Yeah,
other than that, yeah, I got my Twitter, Grass-Fed Bitcoin, and we already gave a huge shout out to Start9, who I'm working with now, makers of the Embassy OS, self-sovereign suite, not just Bitcoin. Yeah, having a lot of fun, and just Bitcoining, pushing self-sovereignty. If you're interested in that stuff, check out my channels, and yeah.
All right, awesome. And all three of us are going to be down in Mexico later in August. I don't know. I may be like right now, I'm still trying to do Dubai. Now Mexico seems way more appealing. I may move all my conferences down to like Mexico or something. It just seems like the most freedom-friendly place in the world these days. Anyway, we got to do price. I didn't do a video yesterday. I was at the event. I'm actually going back to that event right after this. Maybe I'll get to interview a couple of athletes. A great event. I'm gonna do streams from their future events for sure. So the chart continues to deteriorate, guys. This is not looking good. As you know, I've been a bit of a bear lately, waiting for that final capitulation down into the approximately the mid $20,000 range before a swift rebound back to the upside. I mean, if you didn't know this was Bitcoin, I would be a lot more bearish. I still believe there are lots of fundamental reasons for being bullish. Willy Woo just published his newsletter yesterday. So those of you that are on that list, hopefully I can get him back on the show soon to talk about fundamentals, and the fundamentals are pretty strong. The technical picture, however, is not very strong. On a weekly scale, we are once again holding the 50-week moving average, and I would consider it pretty unlikely that we bounce from this area. I mean, there is always a chance. I still think we're going to have a little bit more weakness in the near future, and I am eyeing this daily descending triangle. Yes, I kind of ignored this little rise. I was actually hoping this rise would go all the way into the death cross to create a proper shorting opportunity along with the MRI top. We topped out a little bit early, which indicated that we're actually weaker than expected. We continue to find support at approximately $32,000. But the more times we hit this support, the more likely that support is to break. This is the daily chart, so that means this is the 50-period moving average. We have stayed below the 50-period moving average. We have not even been able to touch it. Here's the good news, however. The good news is that I can lower my area of being bullish. Once again, every time we go down the triangle, I can keep lowering this area as to where I will no longer be anticipating a swift move down to 25,000. And to me, that is the combination of going back above the 50-period moving average and above the prior swing high that was at the top of the triangle, which prior to a couple of days ago was in a $35,500 range, and that has now moved to the $34,500 range. So that means I am expecting the price to stay in this triangle until a very likely big drop. I would love for that drop to take place 5 days from today, because that would time it perfectly with the MRI. So I'm going to continue to kind of move these things over to the side so I can like time it with 5 days from today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Excellent. If we get the big capitulation drop on July 21st, I would consider that to be the bottom of this mini bear drop, and the bull market can resume. Overall picture of the moving averages does not look very good. Short-term charts aren't that interesting right now. GBTC, waiting for that premium to go back to zero. Until it does, I don't really anticipate much of a bull cycle beginning. And yes, there is a lockup period ending in a couple of days, but I don't see that having an effect on the price much. That's about it. Gold. Gold hit an MRI top. I warned people. Beautiful doji candles. Now I'm kind of upset I didn't do a video yesterday. I would have totally pointed this out. but I did point out the day before that gold was potentially topping on a daily chart with a beautiful doji candle. Hopefully you guys treated it wisely. Oil, I remain somewhat neutral on oil. We're on a monthly MRI top, so a little bit more of a pullback as possible. And I remain overall bullish on the S&P 500 and stocks. I know Jimmy just wrote that big article, but to me, it's a bit of a safe haven right now, right? Like, where else would you put your money other than speculate in the stock market? That is it. The mempool continues to be empty, and the mempool might stay empty for a little while because blockchain.info, after 4 years of bullshit, eventually added native SegWit addresses. So I guess congratulations. I'm not really sure what else to say on that note. All right, guys.
Ah, that's so cheap. 9 sats per byte to get in the next block. That's insane.
That's actually
higher than it's been all week,
considering
man.
what it's been for a while. Like, I mean, the mempool has been clearing like every other day. So, like, I've been sending, well, you should like 5 sat per byte, and it's no problem at all.
I did 2 yesterday in like middle of the afternoon on a Thursday, right? And usually as you build up through the week, it gets slowly more clogged until the weekend comes. So yeah, it's been empty. But look, one thing to note is
the last month of the mempool. It's like cleared every single weekend or like every third or fourth day.
But one thing to notice is if you go back to the main page, you'll see the estimated difficulty adjustment, and that's been predicted to be going down around 10% for most of this period, and it's been creeping up since about a week ago, and now it's only going to drop 5%. What that tells me is that in the last week, loads more miners have come back online, so we're finally seeing, we're out of the dip now from hash rate. So that's kind of nice to see. There's a little
those Chinese miners are being plugged in other regions.
Yeah, it's really good to see. I don't know if you saw that clip Marty Bent posted of a bulldozer destroying loads of ASICs in Malaysia. Yep. Yeah, you saw that. Yeah, so it's good to see miners coming back online in other places. I think it's a good time as any to start home mining. If anyone wants to mine at home, please do. It's worthwhile to do it. It's economically viable again because of how high the Bitcoin price is and how much the difficulty has dropped. So
hey guys, speaking of mining, I will be at Mining Disrupt. I am involved in 2 panels. One is going to be about the Bitcoin Mining Council. I believe I'm a panelist there, and I'm moderating the Dear Elon panel. So those are the 2 panels that I'm involved in. That will happen next week down in Miami. So if you're at that conference, come say hi.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Right. That is it. Thank you all so much for watching. Jimmy, Mechanic, thank you again for joining. Let's make sure we do it again next week. I'm sure it'll be a bunch of other topics. And thank you guys.